Hi, and welcome back. Today's topic is 9 reasons why players get recruited. This is the number one video that you need to start with, that you need to understand, memorize, watch, come back and look at when you get frustrated in the process. We're going to go over several different ways to get your foot in the door. You might think of only a couple right now, but after doing this for over 16 years, I've worked with nearly 100 coaches in all different sports, all different levels. I worked for Gator football, Miami men's basketball, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill's Olympic sports. I worked for Elon College for football, basketball, several different sports. So this is going to give you insight on how coaches find players, identify them, and add them to their watch list. What's a watch list? Basically, coaches work off something that I call a watch list. They each have their own list of their priority recruits that they've put together. They're constantly adding and subtracting names to this list, and this is the list basically like their Bible. They take this everywhere they go. They take it on the road. They take it home. They have it on their phones. They have it on their emails. And basically, I spent most of my career, day in and day out, updating these lists in the database. So here we go. It's important for you to understand that these watch lists are being created from as early as your freshman year, sometimes maybe even before that. Coaches aren't going to sit around and wait till they're legally able to contact you and start gathering the information. They're going to start gathering that as you're a sophomore, as you're a freshman, as an 8th grader. They're putting together your address, your coach's contact information, your phone numbers, your parents' information, your high school, just trying to get hold of all the information that they need. So when they're ready to contact you, then they have all the information they need at their fingertips. The head coach may come in, hey, I want to call so-and-so. What's their cell phone number? I need their parents' number, the high school coach's number. And assistant coaches, are pretty trained on having as much information together as possible so they can reach out to the player, or the head coach can reach out to the player as soon as possible. So what you're trying to do throughout the process is get your foot in the door. And this list, these 9 reasons, is going to tell you different ways to do that. And so when you get frustrated with the process, how it's going for you, I want you to keep going back to this list and find new ways to help get your name out there and get your foot in the door. So number 1, scouting services. It's important to understand that just because there isn't a coach in the bleachers, with the college polo on, so you know who's there watching you, you also need to understand that there's a lot of local scouting services in the area, scouting services that work in certain regions, certain states, JUCO scouting services. So just because coaches may not be there, that you need to understand that coaches are also getting feedback from people that are on the ground, local in the area. So pretty much every sport, all coaches, every level, they all subscribe to these kind of services depending on their budget. Some of the big schools, they can subscribe, to several services. Some of the smaller schools, they can subscribe to, maybe 1 or 2 trusted services. But this is a main way, and especially early for freshmen, sophomores, sometimes transplants, kids that have moved into the area. This is a way for coaches to kind of comb through and get some insight on some players in the area. Basically, these scouting services provide coaches with height, weight, your contact information, sometimes cell phone, emails, and usually they'll include a blurb about you, how you are as a player, if you're undersized. Usually they provide just a little bit of information as well. And coaches, basically, ones I work for, they'll hand me a stack of these scouting services, a binder, a booklet, and they'll go through and circle players that they're interested in. A lot of times I feel like they were scanning them for size, players that fit the size requirements that they were looking for, because basically it's just kind of information on paper. They can't watch you, so they're just going off that and adding kids to their watch list based solely off their size. Now, number 2 is a reason that you're probably familiar with. There's several different regional combines. I know with football, there's Rivals combines, Adidas. There was a Nike combine. So this is a pretty high-profile events. They have different sports. They do showcases. But this is definitely a great way to get your name out there. These are run usually by third-party groups, and they'll also record your size, your speed. Sometimes they'll do testing and to give coaches the information that they're looking for, the basics. Coaches are scanning these as well, looking for size, players that have great size or great speed for the positions they're recruiting. So they'll collect your contact information. Coaches will once again go through these reports. A lot of the combine services provide these reports to coaches. So once again, they print them out, circle, go through, usually based off size and speed, and we'll add players to the list based off these reports. All right, number 3, this is another kind of common sense way, but there's a little twist to it that I also wanted to talk to you about. Impressed at a game or tournament. So it's very rare that a college coach is going to come out and watch you play unless they've seen you on film, or they've gotten a good recommendation from your coach or somebody that's trusted in their area. So usually if they've come out to see you play, they already have done their homework on you. But a way that you can use this to your advantage is that understand that, coaches may be coming out to see a teammate, or they may be coming out to see an opponent. And this can be another opportunity for you to kind of get on a radar, because a lot of times coaches would go see a kid that they already knew about and that they liked and were recruiting, but they would come back and say, hey, I also want to add this player. They really impressed me, or I never heard of this kid, but I think they'd be a great fit. So always know that there are people watching, and it happens all the time. So you really never know who's watching, so you need to kind of have great sideline manners, be a great leader. Just pretend that like coaches that you're really interested, or just pretend they're in the stands watching you, because you really never know. All right, just wanted to take a little break for a second and remind you to subscribe to our channel. We're going to have plenty of in-depth advice for each of these 9 ways. I'm going to put together a separate video for each of these 9 ways to go in depth, and we have tons of other advice for you to get recruited, to get offers, to get better, to become a better leader. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. All right, number 4 is recommended by a prep coach. You could be recommended by your high school or AAU coach. I get asked a lot, what do you do when your coaches aren't sending out your film? You also need to understand that coaches are out there calling people. They're picking up the phone and calling their regions that they recruit, asking the different high school coaches, asking their sources in the area, that, hey, like, who's a good kid that I've never heard about? Who's the best player that no one's talking about? They're always trying to find, they don't leave a stone unturned. They're always trying to find like a hidden talent. So know that they're out there looking for you too. So you can't really sit back and wait for them to come find you, but also do know that they are picking up the phone and calling, even if your coach may not be calling. They're not calling every high school, but they are calling several. I would sit for, especially in the off season, hours and hours, and listen to them back to back to back to back phone calls. Just calling coaches, chit-chatting, asking, who's nobody talking, like who's the guy that nobody knows yet, that's just really a standout. So understand that it's a possibility. Now, number 5, camps. This is one that most of you probably know about. I think camps are a really wonderful way to get on the radar. A lot of kids, I think there's a stigma out there that if you're not invited, you shouldn't go, and that's totally not the case. I organized Urban Meyer's camps, and prior to him, Ron Zook's camps with Gator football. I also helped out a little bit with Miami basketball's camps. A lot of the coaches I work with run camps, so I know how they work. And a lot of times kids would show up, obviously they invite kids that they're recruiting and they're interested in, but we always every year had kids that could show up, they were unheard of, but they could compete, sometimes dominate some of these recruits that the coaches already knew about. So if you have a player come in and can keep up with, go head to head with some of these proven players they already know about, for sure they're going to add you to their watch list. A lot of these players every year, we would have at least a couple that nobody heard of them before, and then they would get an offer shortly after. So I think camps are just really extremely valuable. I know sometimes they're not affordable for everybody, but there's ways around that we can discuss, in the other videos. Sometimes they prorate camps. There's team camps that are usually cheaper. There's just different ways to kind of get your foot in the door and get seen at these camps. I think they're great because it's a good measuring stick. Say you're somebody with no offers, it's not really realistic to expect to go to a top 25 teams camp and walk away with an offer. It probably is not going to happen. Not to say that you shouldn't try. I would never discourage people from doing that, but you also have to go into it being realistic. Teams that would be a good fit for you. If, like, you go to their camp, it's a good opportunity to get recruited. And you can also walk away with some new drills. You can talk to the coaches, your position coaches at the camp, and ask them, like, hey, I want to play in college. Like, what are some drills I should be doing? What do I need to work on? And a lot of them will tell you. So I think they're very valuable, and you can walk away with a lot. All right, number 6, highlights or game video. This is another common one. You think you're going to get noticed. It's important that when you start reaching out to coaches that you have your film ready. I think you should have it ready before you start reaching out to coaches. They're getting hit up by hundreds of players a week usually. So, if you're able to somehow get through to a coach, or your coach talks to somebody you're interested in playing for, that you have your film, your highlights, your game film ready to go, because they're not going to remember 3 weeks later, a month later when you send it to them. So it's great to have it, up and ready to go. And with technology today, there's really no excuse. There's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever, email. The old school way you had to call around and mail DVDs. That stuff is obsolete now. So there's really no excuses that you can't get your information out there, even if, maybe your coaches aren't helping, your prep coaches. You can still do it yourself. So a lot of times, the players that we recruited, a lot of players were kids that came to us first. So just because they're not contacting you yet, this is a great way for them, to learn about you. They're not going to be able to tell if they're going to recruit you unless they can see you play. So if they're not coming to see you play in person, then you better start getting your film out. All right, number 7, offered by a rival or conference school. Here's a little secret that the coaches do watch who their competitors are offering, who they're recruiting. It would happen regularly, like every, few weeks or month, I'd hear the head coach go into an assistant coach's office and say, hey, so-and-so just offered, the kid from Tampa, Tampa Jesuit, how come we haven't offered him yet? So assistant coaches are expected to be experts in the areas that they recruit. And head coaches, when they hear something, sometimes they go straight to the assistant, like, hey, how come we haven't offered him? Why aren't we recruiting him? What's wrong? They want their contact information right away. So assistant coaches are really combing through their areas to try to find any potential player that could be a fit for the program. So understand that this is a way to kind of get yourself on the radar. You may get an offer from a school that's not your dream school, but it's in the conference that you want to play in. Sometimes that'll help you get your foot in the door with other schools within the conference, or a rival that you would be interested in playing for. All right, now I'm going to keep it real with 8 and 9. Just these aren't ways you should necessarily bank on or depend on these ways to get your foot in the door. But I do think that this does go on, so just letting you know. A lot of times, number 8, sometimes if you're a friend of a top recruit, so if you're wondering why, some of your friends or other players who may not be as good as you are getting offers, every once in a while, it happens very rarely, but occasionally you do hear of kind of, package deals where an elite player may want to play with his best friend or family member, as a cousin or something. And sometimes they'll say, hey, coach, I want to play where my cousin plays. And it's up to the team to decide if they're willing to kind of give up a scholarship, or, having another player on scholarship who might not be as worthy as some of the other players that they're looking at. All right, number 9, influential family members. Once again, I wouldn't really bank on this. I never really heard of situations similar to the ones with the college admission scandals that we've heard about with celebrities, but I do know that there's, a lot of powerful people within the university, alumni, former players, donors, professors, deans, those types of things, presidents. Universities are extremely political, and there's a lot of powerful people involved. So we usually would find out about players, someone's nephew or cousin or neighbor, grandchild, something like that. Sometimes that information would get passed along, and coaches would send maybe the players some recruiting letters, but not really show interest in visiting them or offering them. Sometimes players would, maybe make the team as a walk-on. There's players that are fully capable of earning a scholarship. We just happen to hear about them because, of their political tie. I definitely work with players that, could have easily earned scholarships. They were just brought to our attention because of a political person within the university or program, professional athlete, celebrity, donor. There's just a lot of people. So I'm just throwing this out there, again, not as a reason that I would try to use, but just so you know, because I know kids get frustrated sometimes with other kids who may not be as talented getting recruiting attention or offers. So it does happen, and there's a lot of politics involved, so it happens. All right, so we're going to start wrapping this up. So what do you need to know about watch lists? First and foremost, you definitely don't have to be on a top 100 list to get offers. Coaches, they may print them out, scan them, but they're not adding everybody to the list. It's not going to prevent you. So a coach may like your film, and they're not going to check the top 100 list to see if you're on there and then decide if they're going to recruit you or not. Once again, eyes are everywhere. Just because a college coach isn't in the stands doesn't mean that people aren't watching. Interest doesn't necessarily equal offers, but it's a great first step. A lot of kids, may read in too much if they're getting letters or emails. I send hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of letters to kids that I knew the coaches might not be offering. Sometimes they're just, kind of keeping their options warm. You're kind of a long shot, but they're just going to continue to send you mail. So, and this is just a reminder, some insight from my perspective working for so many years in college sports that, champions, they don't usually win on the first effort. It's about fighting through. So you have to keep fighting, keep contacting people, keep getting your name out there. A lot has to happen from getting your name even on the watch list. Getting your name on the watch list is a task itself. But a lot goes on between then and getting a scholarship offer, and then to signing your letter of intent. A lot can go on. So it's important that, you have to understand that it's up to you to keep fighting for what you want. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you found the information very helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And know that these lists change daily. Coaches are adding and subtracting kids all the time, so it's up to you to, get your name out there and keep your name on these lists. And remember, it's just, at the end of the day, you really only need one school to believe in you and give you a chance. So a lot of kids get tied up with, getting 10, 20, 30 offers, when really at the end of the day, you just need one. You're only going to sign with one school, and hopefully, and you just have to keep working to get that one really great offer that's a great fit for you.